July Test Team of the Week for the second week, folks. A bit of a turnaround with the Northern Hemisphere teams doing rather well this week. So there's a few more bodies from the North and a lot fewer from the South in the teams. But yeah, we're going to go through the games which were hosted by South Africa, Japan, New Zealand, Australia and Argentina at the weekend. They've got full match stats and I've seen them all. I haven't yet seen Georgia and Italy. That one does have match stats, but I have not been able to find well, there was no stream of it here on Sky in New Zealand, nor on Flow Sports. If anybody happens to know where one can view that game, do feel free to let me know in the comments or by email or something. I don't mind if it's in English or not, but I would love to catch up on that one. And the Pacific Nations Cup doesn't do stats, unfortunately, so none of those games considered. But anyway, we're going to go through some players. As always, you guys let me know your thoughts, and yeah, let's get started. Props. Well, there was only one loose head prop that I seriously... Well, I mean, to be honest, a fair few loose heads were good this week. But Porter, against New Zealand, scores 2 tries down in Dunedin, which is pretty tidy. I don't think many people would have had money on him to bag a double. Only from 4 runs as well. So 4 runs, 2 tries, pretty good return. Makes 8 metres. 2 metres to carry for a prop is actually genuinely quite decent. And to add 2 tries on top, not half bad. A couple of passes from him. 8 from 8 tackles. Wins a turnover. He does concede a couple of penalties, but I think the Irish scrum generally looked a lot better than last week at Eden Park as well. So overall, not a bad day at the office for Andrew Porter. You would have to say that's certainly a pretty memorable one. He should be getting a fair few free drinks for a wee while. Tight head, I ended up going with a Scott, and he really picked up his game from last week. Last week he was kind of poor. Second week, big turnaround from ZANDER FAGERSON. Really, really good shift. One area of concern for him has been that he's a good scrummager, but he can be prone to giving away a few penalties. None this week, so that's a big old green tick for him. 9 from 10 tackles is a bit of a shift from a big prop. He has 8 carries, 10 metres, like not the greatest return in terms of metres per carry, but good work rate. He's getting in and doing the dirty stuff and putting the Pumas scrum under a lot of pressure, which is job number 1 for a big tight head prop. So yeah, I really thought he elevated his game big time from last week. Other props who may be unlucky, I think Genge from England was obviously very, very busy. On another day, you could have easily had him in if Porter hadn't maybe bagged himself 2 tries. The Welsh props, obviously. Was it Sam Wainwright? Obviously. I mean, to come on, get your international debut in a win down in South Africa up against what's a pretty fearsome, albeit changed, South African pack. Not a bad start to your international career, mate. Hooker, I've gone with an Englishman in Jamie George. The Air Force is flying Hercules over my house again. Jamie George, man, I thought he did pretty well as well. There's been a bit of a blast from the past with some of Eddie's selections who'd previously kind of seemingly been on the outer kind of come in okay. Jamie George being one of them. It looked like his stocks had fallen, but he did pretty good. 5 carries from him, 23 metres, pretty bloody good return. He beats a defender. 6 from 7 tackles. The English lineout operates pretty well. The percentage there is for the overall team rather than just him individually, but yeah, I thought he was really busy and did a pretty good job. I mean, Sheehan for Ireland was also very good. I had him in my team last week in a losing effort, and I thought in a winning effort, he still did really well. But Jamie George for mine. Locks, I've ended up going with a South African in old EBEN ETZEBETH, the one guy who made the team 2 weeks in a row from Jacques Nienaber's selection point of view. He showed why he's pretty consistent, albeit in a losing effort, like I said. I mean, his ball carrying wasn't the biggest. 3 runs, 2 metres. He does manage to beat a defender despite really not getting much go forward, though. But 6 passes is decent involvement. He's at 100% for his tackles with 7 from 7. But at line-out time, he was a real pain in the backside for the Welsh, wasn't he? He wins 6 line-outs on South African ball and wins 2 turnovers in the game. They don't specify whether they're line-out or general play. but from memory, it was line out. He does concede a penalty and cough up a couple of turnovers, but ultimately, like the Welsh line out was not looking really confident even before they threw the ball in. And you could just see EBEN kind of staring you down, waiting for that ball. So, yeah, I thought his presence was pretty well felt on an evening which maybe for South Africa wasn't that memorable, but certainly was from a Welsh point of view. Other lock, and it has to be TADHG BEIRNE. One of my favourite players generally, even when he's not putting in crazy numbers like this. And it's easier to pick games where guys get crazy high run meters, right? Like the South African and Welsh game was, was more of an arm wrestle. So sometimes it's harder to pick if you're looking for stats as well. I mean, you try to take a holistic approach, but Burns got the whole thing, doesn't he? The whole package. 7 runs for 45 meters is bonkers for a lock. Like, that's crazy numbers, but he has always been pretty mobile, hasn't he? A clean break, beats 3 defenders, including flattening Jordie Barrett, who himself is like 6'5". So Jordie Barrett's not a small guy, but he was just a speed bump for TADHG BEIRNE. 7 passes and an offload. I think the offload's the one that puts like James Ryan into a bit of space. 12 from 12 tackles, so 100% from him. Wins a couple of lineouts, wins a turnover. Yeah, man. He was just, I mean, a couple of those carries, it's like it's him getting up over the advantage line, and then, at least for the first try, I think it's a couple of phases later, Porter goes over. So it's that kind of front foot ball, opposition defence is scrambling, you know what I mean? Like, it takes the big carries for someone else to then go and finish it off. Typical loose head prop stealing the glory, but there you go. I'm talking about Porter. But, yeah, certainly BEIRNE in the build-up. Pretty important stuff. That's your type 5. And then Lucy's, I've gone with another Irishman in Peter O'Mahony. Certainly in the All Blacks faces, which was pleasing to see. He's a passionate guy, Peter O'Mahony. You can't help but love watching that guy, man. He has 5 runs for 21 metres, which is solid, although pales in comparison to his teammate BEIRNE. He beats a couple of defenders. He's got his hands on the pill as well with 6 passes, including a couple offloads. He's another one who shows that defensive prowess with 100%, 11 from 11. He wins 4 lineouts. He kicks a bloody 50-22. Doesn't give away any penalties, man. Like, what doesn't he do? He just does a bit of everything in this game. So, absolute, like, the guy that you want standing next to you, when you're in the thick of it. So, Peter O'Mahony, thought he did pretty well. From the Welsh, I've gone with Tommy REFFELL. Still got to get that guy's pronunciation right. I'm used to calling him REFFELL from the Premiership, but apparently that's not right. I think he gets man of the match. I didn't stick around for the post-match stuff because there was so much rugby on this weekend. But, yeah, I believe I've been told he got man of the match by someone in the comments, so I'm assuming that's true. Ball in hand, it's 2 runs, 1 metre, like nothing too flash. He's got a couple of passes, but defensively, he was a key man in keeping the Springboks tryless in this game. Remember, that's no easy task. Going to South Africa, not only getting a win for the first time in your history, but keeping them without crossing the whitewash. They only got penalties. 12 from 13 tackles from him. Massive shift. Wins turnovers. Doesn't give away any penalties. Just an absolute defensive masterclass. And as I said, what was a real arm wrestle game. So it's not one where you can kind of wow people with the stats. It's sometimes about the grind, but the grind is as equally difficult. So, yep, REFFELL in there at 7. And then I've gone with another Scott and another FAGERSON in here at number 8. I thought he actually did pretty well defensively. He would have been my closest guy because I had no Scots in the team of the week last week. He would have been my closest for a defensive shift, but he turned on some of the fun stuff with ball in hand as well this week. He bags himself a try where he kind of burrows over from close range. He has 9 runs for 29 metres, which is a pretty good return. He beats a defender. He has 5 passes, so he's getting his hands on the pill as well. So really getting the offensive involvements just this week, not just the defense. 10 from 10 tackles, so he still has that. 4 turnovers, 1 is bonkers, if that's right. Wins a line out and concedes 1 penalty. But overall, man, proper shift from him going both directions. So, yeah, man, really, really, really well done. Some other guys who have been kind of hard done by. Petty for the Argentinians almost bagged himself a try and was genuinely Pretty disruptive at line-out time too. Matt Phillip for the Aussies was also really good in the air, and I thought he had a pretty busy shift. Lucy's, there's loads of them. TADHG for Scotland was everywhere. Lydiot for Wales made a bunch of tackles. Gunter for Japan, turnovers and tackles. Van der Fleer for Ireland, goodness gracious. If not for a REFFEL, I think you'd have to go Van der Fleer because he was all over the place as well. Billy V had some defensive frailties, but man, ball in hand, he was back to his best, wasn't he? He was really a big unit. And Doris as well, he was just Mr. Everywhere, man. That ankle tap kind of characterizing the commitment. So, yeah, loads of guys who I could have gone with, but those are the ones I have picked. Backs, I've got another Scot. What is going on? I've gone with Ben White. Absolutely ran the show. I remember finally given a chance to start instead of come from the bench, and I think he stepped up pretty well. He has a try assist, that kind of inside ball for Bennett. But I mean, ultimately, when you look at 43 passes, it's just the speed of his service. Getting the Scottish pack moving forward. Something they kind of lacked a little bit last week. So, yeah, I think he really added some good value. He has 3 runs for 10 metres, so he was able to kind of have a few snipes. One of them he went close. He went really close to the try line, and then next phase, Matt FAGERSON goes over for his try. So he backs himself. He keeps defenders in 2 minds. Beats a defender. 7 from 7 tackles. On the negative side, he does have 1 penalty conceded, which directly leads to 3 points. It's a high tackle. If you're a halfback, you shouldn't be making high tackles. So, yeah, apart from that, I thought he had a pretty good shift. Obviously, Van Portfleet for England was really good. Kuyu came on for France and absolutely changed the show. So, yeah, I'll go with Ben White at 9. Now, at 10, this maybe going to be a little bit of a controversial one. If I was doing a bench, I'd probably put Gareth Anscombe to come on from the bench. But, man, like, I don't think Wales wins that game without Gareth Anscombe coming on. The obvious choice is probably to go with Sexton because that guy absolutely bossed the show when he was on as well. But Anscombe, I mean, they're like 9-3 down when he comes on. Not long later, they go down. They got a yellow card as well. They go down to 12-3. But this guy comes on when Bigger goes off with a bit of a niggling injury. And he manages to bag himself a penalty. I think he does miss one. But he bags himself a penalty to get them a wee bit closer. And then he gets the only try assist for the only try of that game. That wide ball to Adams was a proper thing of beauty. That's the kind of one that could easily drift forward. But nah, he nailed it. He only has 4 passes because he comes on for about half an hour. He has the 1 kick. He tackles 3 from 3. And that clutch conversion, like that conversion from the sideline, time's almost up to win the game or to put the team ahead, which ends up being the winning points. Like, that's the ultimate pressure cooker situation, and he just, like, often I pick these teams and try to go for the whole performance, but sometimes you got to look at that one moment and go, bro, I got to put you on the board. So, Gareth Anscombe at 10, man. Really well done. Former Blues man as well. I'm not talking about Cardiff either, I'm talking about my Blues. Midfield, I've gone with a Wallaby in Samu Karevi. I could have had him last week. In a losing shift, Karevi, he still looks good, man. He gets that try, the pass from Lolosio. He kind of goes through pretty much unopposed for that one. So he didn't have to work too hard for it, but you can't say he wasn't hard-working. 9 runs for 50 metres. He always gets some go forward, that man. He has a clean break. He has 5 defenders beaten. 5 defenders beaten is among the most this week. I think Max Spring had 7 against Japan, but 5's right up there. 6 passes, 3 kicks. His kicking game's really come along, hasn't it? 5 from 5 tackles. Defensively, he used to be a kind of like a 5 out of 8 guy, but 5 from 5 is a really solid shift. So Samu Karevi, always getting some go forward, albeit in a losing shift. Obviously, you could go with Farrell. He kicked his goals really well, but I've gone with Karevi. And then another guy whose kind of stats maybe don't do him justice is Robbie Henshaw. Remember, he had to shift to 13 once Ringrose went off with that kind of collision in the head. And Henshaw's stats don't look that flash, but he was just everywhere. I need to go back and rewatch the game, but he just seems to be everywhere. Like, if he's not the one getting the ball, he's the one helping to clear out. He's running the support line, you know what I mean? Mr. Everywhere. He does have 5 runs for 7 metres, which, like I said, isn't that flash. 7 passes is a decent amount for a guy who was kind of playing 12-13, though. 10 from 12 tackles is the most equal, I think, of any midfielder this week. I think Esterhazen also had 10. Doesn't concede any penalties, just 1 turnover conceded. Overall, I think Ireland always look a good team when Henshaw's playing. He very rarely has a bad game. So, yeah, pretty happy to have him in there. And then we get to the outside backs. I did manage to get a Frenchman in, MATTHIS LEBEL. The French-Japanese game was kind of a bit ugly for large periods, so it's another one where it's hard to really pick guys that that stood out that much. There were some, like I mentioned, Kuyu came on pretty well, but I mean, LEBEL, he gets a try, pretty well taken early on, shows some wheels, beats one man for that one, I think, or is it later on? Anyway, he gets 8 runs for 54 metres, 3 clean breaks is the most for anyone this week to be getting into space. 4 defenders beaten, also pretty high. 2 passes a kick, 3 from 4 tackles. He does concede a penalty and a couple of turnovers conceded, but LEBEL, yeah, pretty sharp from France. Last week it was about Pinot. This week it's about LEBEL. Duham was also pretty good for Scotland on the left wing, you'd have to say. He was way more involved than last week, but LEBEL for mine. And then I've gone with right wing, I think Jack Noel. He didn't get on the scoreboard, but boy was he busy. He's another one, kind of like Henshaw, that was absolutely everywhere. He kind of went close. I think it was with Paisami that pulled him into touch when he was finally getting himself into space. But I mean, he still finishes 9 runs, 46 metres. Good return. He's got a clean break and 4 defenders beaten, so showing kind of that physical presence that he's got. Just the one pass, but 11 from 12 tackles is the most equal of any back this week, let alone outside backs. But I mean, Noel was popping up everywhere. Like I said, not just stuck out on the right wing. Sometimes he'd be on the left side of the field. He wins a turnover. He does have 1 turnover conceded, but overall, pretty good. I might have done the dirty on Gerhard van den Heever from Japan because that guy had a way better game than last week too. But yeah, different game. I thought Noel, especially defensively, as I said, he pops up everywhere and had a pretty good shift. And last one, I had to get a Japanese guy because they played a lot better than last week as well. As I said, the game was a bit ugly at times, but RYOHEI Yamanaka at fullback, he gets a couple of tries. He's good in the build-up to one of them, and he's got a good support line for the other. He has 14 runs, which is huge, 69 metres, beats a defender, 13 passes, so really, really involved in a lot of the Japanese attack. Couple of offloads. 2 from 4 tackles is not great. He misses 1 on LEBEL when LEBEL's getting into some space. But 9 kicks, wins a turnover. Like I said, he was just really, really involved, kind of a playmaking fullback as well as able to finish up a couple of tries. So as I said, it's good to get a Japanese guy on the board because there were a few guys like Gunter and like Van den Heever who had some good games as well. They got within 5 points of the French team. So there you go. As I said, I haven't seen the Georgians and Italians, so I would have loved to include some of them, but I haven't seen the game, even though the stats are out. And then I would have loved to include some of the guys from the other games, which I have seen the games, but they don't do stats for them. Such is life. But there you go, folks. Week 2. Team of the week. As I said, you could go with a bunch of other guys, but narrowed it down to 15. You guys let me know your thoughts. Who would you have? Would it be largely Irish? I didn't include any All Blacks. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I also didn't include any Pumas, but I think Petty was the best of the lot. Who was the best All Black at the weekend? Will Jordan got a try at the end. Bodie got a try. Anyway, folks, you guys take care of yourselves. Let me know who you'd have in, who else you might have had that I might have missed, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.